Okay. 寝るのに完璧な大きさだと思います。
You'll notice that Yoko never uses teacher talk, things like explanations or descriptions of grammar rules. Such talk wastes time in the class, which would be better used giving the students more experience of the language. It saps students' energy, encourages them to switch off until the teacher has finished. In fact, Yoko speaks very little, giving the students the maximum time possible for them to speak.
I started the fourth lesson with a simple list of what I could see in the picture, more as a means of warming up than anything
椅
else.
子とソファとラグとスリッパと絵とベッドがあります。
ちょっと日本語のメロディーで。
Okay, so 椅子と椅子とソファと椅子とソファとラグとベッドとスリッパと絵があります。
The melody is important in Japanese, just as stress is in English, so Yoko coached me to improve this. I felt I needed more practice with one of the structures we'd worked on in the previous lesson, so I tried this.
この椅子は座りにくそう、座りにく。その椅子は座りにくそうに見えます。けれど、このソファは、このソファは、このソファは座りにくす、that's wrong way round. 座りやすそうに見えます。ピアスさん、どう思いますか？
I want to say I agree with Lawrence.
だから私
はい、私は、その私も、ロレンスさんと、
OK? Different answer ね。
Okay、ロレンスさんと、そう思います。
そう思いますわ、それは。その時は。
Okay、
私も
ロレンスさんと、すぐる。
させてください。
OK。
どれですか？どの言葉使いますか？
たくさん、高い、熱い、もっと、多い、少し、低い、
寒い。
はい、同じ。同じ。そう、私はロレンスさんと、同じ思います。
シンプル。
同じです。そう、私はロレンスさんと同じです。そのソファは、ロレンスさんが 言ったのと同じく、座りやすそうに見えます。
In this small exchange, 1. The impetus for what was said came from us, the students. 2. Yoko's role was to work on us until we were able to say it well. 3. We combined practice of previously encountered language with being pushed quite a bit farther into new areas. In the next clip, I wanted to test the hypothesis that a way of saying I think or he thinks that we'd experienced in the previous week's lesson might fit in this situation.
このソファーは寝やすそうだと思います。
ですね。
Can I say 寝やすそうだと思うんです。
ちょっとシチュエーションが合わないかな。
Okay.
Yoko simply gave me feedback that this formulation didn't fit the situation we were in. She offered no explanation, and I didn't ask for one. It was an experiment, after all. I simply accepted the new data, though I did notice that my mind immediately started spinning new hypotheses about what was different between the two situations. We're usually best leaving students to work things out for themselves, and explanations are a hindrance because they kill that process and leave students with, at best, superficial knowledge. In fact, as the next clip shows, the way I was saying this whole sentence could be more natural. Notice how Yoko used the charts to give an alternative approach to expressing this idea.
文は OK です。でも私は、
このソファーは寝るのにいいと思います。
かな。
寝るのに寝るのにいいと思います。寝るのにいいと思います。このソファーは寝るのにいいと思います。
I really liked being given this alternative way of expressing this idea, and this one seemed to me to be particularly characteristic of Japanese, very elegant, and another example of us getting one step closer to the spirit of Japanese. Meditation is an important part of Piers's life, so we discussed it a few times before in our lessons. On each occasion, until this lesson, neither of us had been completely sure of the Japanese for meditation, and we needed to be shown it again. But on this occasion, when Yoko introduced the idea, it seemed to have become completely part of Piers's Japanese repertoire.
ピアスさん、
はい。
瞑想は心にいいですか？
はははは。
心に、瞑想は心にいいですか？
瞑想は心にいいと思います。
I know that Piers had made no effort to memorize or learn this word, nor had he used any of the popular techniques, things like vocabulary lists, mnemonics, or flashcards. However, simply by having encountered the word several times in real contexts, his mind had by itself made it part of his mental representation of Japanese. We returned to the topic of how comfortable the sofa was.
ローレンさんは、そのソファは寝るのにいいと思っています。OK。
そうです。でも、ピアスさんは同じですか？
または
ピアスさんはそう思いますか？
うん。はじゃなくて、
ああ、そう、ピアスさんが、
うん。
ピアスさんと、
うん。
ピアスさんに、
うん、違う。
OK。
同じだから。うん。
同じ、
うん
ピアスさんに、
うん、
の
違う、違う。
ピアスさん、そう、
同じだから。
ピアスさん、うん、
私は、
ピアス、
ピアさん
ピアスさんも、
そうそうそうそう。
ピアスさんも、そう思いますか？
うんうん。
The process of me floundering around wasn't very elegant. It took quite a long time, and some of that time I was just guessing, until at the end I suddenly realised that mo was what I needed in this sentence. Incidentally, this is still something that as an English speaker I find quite odd and surprising. The prolonged process of trying things out and feeling a bit lost made the light bulb moment at the end all the more powerful. This really isn't the kind of feeling that you can get from reading a rule in a textbook. Piers was somewhat sceptical about whether I would fit on the sofa, which led to this dialogue.
ロランさん、そのソファーはどのぐらいの大きさだと思いますか？
完璧の大きさと思います。
いうプロブレム。
だと思います。OK。
プロブレム。
完璧の大きさだ。
完璧はこの仲間。
ああ、完璧な大きさだと思います。
うん。完璧な大き
OK。
さ、ちょっとベイグだね。マイクエスチョンは、
何に
完璧ですか？
寝るために完璧な大きさだと思います。
うん。ため、in place of ため。
OK。寝るのに
うんうん。
OK。寝るのに完璧な大きさだと思います。
完璧は何ですか？完璧？
Oh, yeah. 英語で完璧は perfect。
Okay. 完璧？
出します。
これのことね。はい、お願いします。
Where is it? Oh, no, wrong one. That one. Sorry, that one. もう一度。Okay.
完璧。Okay.
頭がここで、足がここで、私には完璧です。
Finally, we continued this theme as I asked Piers,
ピアスさん、このラグは瞑想をするのに良さそうですか？
ははは。
良さそう。良さそうですか？
クッションも欲しいです。はい、クッションも欲しいです。
Okay.
That concluded the fourth in this series of lessons. It's obvious that the students' powers of expression increased during these 6 hours. Just compare the first sentence they said.
この部屋は黒さんの寝室です。
With 2 from the middle of the series.
その部屋には 時計がありません。
うん
それはちょっと変だと思います。
Here is their final exchange.
ピアスさん、
うん
このラグは、瞑想をするのに、良さそうですか？
ははは。
良さそ
うん。良さ
良
そう。
さそう良さそうですか？
うんうん
クッションも欲しいです。
うん
うんうん。
はい、クッションも欲しいです。
Okay.
We progressed by a series of small things being added to and integrated with what we already knew. Yoko didn't add these new things according to a pre-planned syllabus, but at the most efficient moment, when we needed them to express whatever we were thinking.
Providing language at the point of need is clearly the most efficient way of adding new items.
Throughout the lessons, we were working on the spoken language, the highest priority for students at this stage. So our sentences weren't written down and we weren't reading them.
They had to work on themselves to recreate each sentence every time it was said.
There were moments of puzzlement, doubt, and confusion. These moments of discomfort are precisely what students need for learning. They are what gives us the impetus to change ourselves.
New content words were added to Piers and Lawrence's vocabulary. Instead, their minds were focused on learning how to use Japanese to express their thoughts. And these were their thoughts, not pre-prepared ideas imagined by a textbook author or a teacher or anyone else.